His Girl Friday. That's right, folks. We're back talking one of the most monumental films, I think, in my life. A couple years back, we talked about Casablanca. I said that's my favorite movie ever made. It still is. It is the thing I love the most in this world in terms of film. Right behind Casablanca, if that is the gold standard for me, the silver goes to His Girl Friday from Howard Hawks. This is the exact type of movie that is perfectly made for me. A screwball comedy that is just loud and fast, and there's a million things being said every minute. We hold on takes for so long. I absolutely love this movie. We have talked a lot about Howard Hawks on this channel before. He is my favorite director, and because this is one of those monumental films for me, it's one of the ones that I struggle to talk about the most in this capacity. I know I could probably do it more justice in a longer format if I actually delved into every sequence and every specific detail. But with a show like this, I don't know how far in we can go. And especially with a movie of this nature, is all of it is just jokes. It is just repeating things that are said in the movie. So I don't know how far like that we can go into things. All I can tell you is this is the perfect movie. I think it's shot beautifully. I think it's a beautiful script. You have so many character actors just popping in to do very minimal jobs of just the funniest people you've ever met. And it's just about the newspaper industry and just about like those glory hounds, those people who are hungry for the story, who don't really care about human life in that capacity. It's an extreme example of that, and that can be annoying, and maybe it's a little lame. But for me, come on. I went to school for journalism. I've studied this kind of stuff. It's so fascinating to see this world executed on this scale because it does draw you in. It's about the allure of being a part of this thing, about finding the scoop, who you talk to, having the people you talk to, and all that. It's so interesting, and how the story plays out with that, it's just brilliant. I don't know how we're gonna do that. I don't know how to do this. I could talk to you endlessly about this movie until you ask me to talk to you endlessly about this movie because I don't know how far we want to go into this. It's just jokes. This is the story of Rosalind Russell's character, Hildy Johnson. I would argue my second favorite character to lead a movie next to Rick in Casablanca. I love Hildy. She is one of my favorite characters to ever exist. I think she's one of the coolest characters to ever exist. She is a woman that is so aware of the world she is in that it almost blinds her to any other world. And the fact that she thinks she can survive in another world is her lying to herself. And that's one of my hottest takes about this movie, is that Hildy thinks she wants anything else than this, but the entire time she doesn't. And that is proven throughout. This is her returning to her paper at the Post, where she is telling her ex-husband and her boss of the paper, Walter Burns, that she is leaving and she is getting married the next day. She is marrying this man she met named Bruce Baldwin, and she's leaving the paper. And he's like, oh, no, you can't just leave the paper like that. No, we have the big Earl Williams case coming up. No, we have all this stuff that matters. And from the very beginning of this movie, the best thing to ever happen was putting Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell on screen. The chemistry is electric. You have two actors in still shots for 4 minutes, just acting and talking over each other without any break, without any need to stop. It is so impressive. Cary Grant, we have not talked about on this channel. He is one of those guys that is you don't get George Clooney without Cary Grant. He's putting on a show, he's putting on a performance on screen and off screen, and every time he's in frame of this movie, you're looking at this guy who is so competent and complete in every single word he is saying. Every action he takes is because he loves his wife. The way he shows love for Hildy is through manipulating her and showing that he's an egotistical asshole, he's chauvinistic, he's not interested in her. That's his love language. And what Hildy realizes at the end, that's her love language too. She loves this guy from the beginning. The entire time, there isn't a moment where you don't buy she loves him. And they're so good together. And it's just these quick jokes, rapid fire, coming to you at every second. But he realizes that Bruce is in the building and he's going to take them to lunch to try to convince Hilly to stay and do the Earl Williams case. And you have the sequence where we first meet them in his office. It's brilliant. The sequence where he introduces himself to Bruce, where he shakes the older man's hand, that shakes the hand of the umbrella instead of actually touching Ralph Bellamy. It's genius, it's funny, it's Cary Grant doing that thing only he can do, that certified confidence that just comes out of existing and looking like Cary Grant. He nails it perfectly. Then they go to lunch, and it's just him slowly trying to convince Bruce to get Hildy to stay, but she's not buying it. We also realize that they don't have any real money, and if they take out a life insurance policy with Walter, they can get a little bit of extra cash from it. He's a prominent fella, and he's just a nice guy. And we all know a Bruce. I think everybody in this is probably more of a Bruce than they are a Walter, which is very understandable, and that's why Hildy has to go back to Walter throughout the piece. Is that you're just watching this guy still like one lap behind them in terms of everything they're talking about. He cannot talk as fast as Hildy. He cannot keep up with Walter. But Bruce still loves her and is like, there's something about this guy that is charming. I know why he's not for you. He's kind of a smooth talker, but I can't say he's bad. And then somehow, through sheer luck, Hildy has to go do the Earl Williams case. He's an innocent man who was being framed for the murder of a police officer. Uh-oh, how'd that happen? And as we see the interview of him and Hildy, she's trying to set up, like, you heard some communist people talking about, like, the use of the product. You had a gun. That is what a gun is for. You fired it. You were coerced into doing this. Because they are a Democratic paper, she's trying to spin the story a certain way. God, it's brilliant. So brilliant. It's such a brilliant use of that movie and that character. Like, goddamn, I love all of that stuff. Just like, okay, she's going to write this. She's going to write it in like the reporter's correspondent room of the courthouse where they're like outside getting ready to hang Earl for his actions. And then we are introduced to our ragtag crew of guys in the reporter room, which I just love because you have like these 6 different fellas who are just playing poker. They have telephones set up everywhere and they're just getting their information. As soon as something happens, they have to rush out and do it. And they don't really care how the world perceives them or how they perceive the world. It's just brilliant. And then when you have Molly show up just desperately looking for, like, you guys changed what I was to him in the paper. But this is the other thing I just absolutely love about the movie. They don't say lies. They just say the words in a way that doesn't sound right. Like, Molly does love Earl, but the way they put it in the paper where she's some sort of, like, slut running, like, a hen house, it's disgusting. And that is what upsets her. And you're like, oh shit, that's bad. And also, like, later on when you find that Earl Williams escapes because he gets the gun from the sheriff because then they can capture him and persuade to get further votes later, they were right about that too. But like, they just make it sound like the sheriff's a dumbass, and he kind of is, and I love that. And they're all right. Like, they're all the smartest guys in that room until Hildy walks in, and then she's the one that's just a cut above them because she is the best reporter, and she can never leave this life. It's so brilliant and cool. It's just people talking, and it's just quick wit and witticisms coming at every corner. It's all so brilliant, and I don't know how much we can get into just, like, the actual dialogue of that. But Bruce gets arrested, like, so many different times, all because Walter's intervening to keep him in a place so he can keep Hildy here to do the story, because he knows if Hildy writes this story, she's never going to want to leave the paper. Utter brilliance, utter masterclass of that. This is also, and we're jumping around a lot because, God, what is the order of this movie? Like, I can't spend all day talking about it. This is one of the coolest movies to have the use of telephones. You just got that old style telephone, you hold it to your ear, you're talking to the piece. It's people talking to operators. There are so many beautiful sequences throughout the piece where it's just people getting twisted up on the telephone when all the reporters are talking to their independent papers about what they need to do. When Hildy is just going back and forth between Walter and Bruce and everybody on the other line. It's so amazing, and it's just one of those great uses of, like, a prop. You have the power of the telephone at your disposal. It's not a, like, new invention, but still, like, a young enough concept where you can do something different with it. And this is a movie that's just, like, solely about the telephone. We're going to call people to do certain things happening on screen and off screen. It works great. And it looks great. And it's so much fun. And I just can't get into how much I love Rosalind Russell in this movie. Like, she is fantastic. When she first, like, starts to write the paper and then she realizes that Bruce was arrested because of something Louis did because he was hired by Walter, and she's, like, frantically, like, calling the sheriff's office, like, keep him there, I'm on my way, calling Walter, like, fuck you, Walter, you're messing up my life. And the entire time she's, like, in a dizzy. She doesn't know where she put her hat that's on her head. She doesn't know how to put on her jacket. She's trying to escape, but she wrote the actual piece. It's some of the best writing that the guys in the newsroom have ever read. And she's like, you know what, Walter? You screwed me over again. I'm not giving you the piece. But that is her playing into his hand because that is their love language, which I love. You have two people who are just clearly on the same wavelength the entire time. He is perfectly good at manipulating her, and she is perfectly good at getting under his skin. And the two of them thrive under that condition more than any other condition. They need to be that person to each other in order for any of this to work. It's really strong. It's really cool. And then the back half of this movie is introducing us to three separate characters where it now becomes like a political satire. You have the sheriff, you have the mayor, and you have the correspondent from the governor, Betty Pone. And you just have these two guys who are like, this is going terribly. We're supposed to hang this guy. And now we have to like make a new plan so we could get reelected, but that's not going to happen. And Betty Pone shows up. Oh, man. It's Billy Gilbert, isn't it? I believe he is the one who plays Joel Pettibone. And he's just like, oh, yeah, I'm from the governor's office. So they gave me, like, this letter for you to, like, say, no, we have to kill this guy. And they're like, what are you talking about? You never came here. We're fine. Like, everything's fine. And he's like, no, I came here trying to be bribed by the mayor. But he's too clueless to see he's being bribed. And he's like, oh, would you like a city planner job? He's like, what? And like, no. It's like, come on, your wife would love it. It's like, my wife, not my wife. It's like, oh, it's utter brilliance. It's utter brilliance. Those three guys in that sequence, it's some of the funniest stuff ever. And that's why it's so hard to talk about. And then this movie kind of like spirals out of control as Earl ends up in like the newsroom. He is there with Hildy. Hildy is trying to figure out why Bruce was arrested again for like solicitation of a young woman. And it turns out that woman was with Louis. And now she doesn't have any real money. And everything's going poorly to plan, but she's got Earl. She can get the exclusive, so she calls Walter to come down here. We have him hiding in the desk. We have to get him from the desk into like a safe location. All the reporters come back. We also see that Molly comes back. The sheriff comes in. The mayor comes in. We see Bruce's mother comes in. All of these crowds of people just showing up to this one location with people screaming at each other and trying to manipulate each other and just trying to coerce each other into these stupid things. And it gets very intense and crazy, and Molly jumps out of the roof, and you're like, oh shit, why'd she do that? But she's not dead, she's okay. But it's just like, they realize that it's the sheriff's gun that Earl used to escape, and maybe he had it before, but he didn't have it before, and now the sheriff's in trouble. But because they got Earl, everything could kind of be okay. Like, oh my God, there's so many great sequences. And I don't know if I'm giving justice to Cary Grant enough kind of talking over his performance, but he's just so good at playing that stiff asshole. Like, there's nothing approachable or like everyman about him. He has to kind of be like a cut above everyone, and that's what he does perfectly. When he like knocks on the door, it's like, you got enough air in there? Just kind of like whips in, well, here's some more. Like, it's hilarious, and it's so brilliant. And it just turns with Bruce being like, look, I had to wire Albany for the money where we were going to move. I don't know what they're going to think about me down there now. We find out later there's like strikes going on in Albany. So what's the point of even going there? And the mother gets like into a car accident and she gets kidnapped by Louis. And then it's just like, it's just these two people clearly still in love with each other. You have Walter and Hildy who clearly just like, they're on the same wavelength the entire movie, even if it is chaotic and anarchic. And they're just like, no. I know exactly what we need to do. We have to like get everyone out of this room, search the building if you have to find Earl. We have to find a way to get him out here. But it's just like a coy accident, you could say, by Walter that has them reveal that they have Earl in the place. And it leads to the arrest of Walter and Hildy for their, conspirating to like hide the murderer and all that stuff. But guess what? Pettibone shows back up at the end because he's like, you guys tried to bribe me, but you didn't. No, the governor's like fine with all this. Like, I've been trying to tell you. And now Hildy and Walter have their blackmail against the sheriff and the mayor who tried to bribe a government official, and they can walk out scot-free. They can also turn this into like a brilliant story, and it's fantastic. And it kind of just ends with the two of them on these different phone calls, and she's trying to type away. And you see that Ralph Bellamy shows up just like, I'm going. I guess that's actually before, but like that's like the key moment where it's like he's going, she's stuck in this world now. As soon as she's behind that typewriter, she's lost and he can't have her. And now she's stuck here doing that, and it's the thing she's always wanted to begin with. And Walter's like, we're going to take a vacation. We're going to get married. She's like, we're getting married again? Like a real one this time? You're actually going to be a proper gentleman? He's like, I don't know. Sure. Why not? Let's go to Niagara Falls. You're like, hell yeah, let's go to Niagara Falls. Why wouldn't we, God, it's so cool. And I know we're kind of breezing through the plot, but it's so fast. Like, every minute there's like 22 things that are said. It's never ending. It's just people talking over each other. You have so many great jokes. Like, you have the piece where it's like, we have to rewrite the entire paper. Get out the stuff about like the politics. The story about the rooster, keep that in. That's human interest. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. That's a really good joke that I dig so much. So many supporting characters just showing in, talking over each other, saying stupid stuff. People behind the jokes, people in on the jokes. It's great. Louie, get your girl to find that guy in the cab waiting down there. He kind of looks like actor Ralph Bellamy, Like, it's fourth wall breaky in a way that really works, and it's tongue-in-cheek. And I think only Cary Grant can really carry that weight. Like, he's so good at just presenting that type of energy in that chaotic, like, narrative. It's so much fun. But it's just two interesting people who have their own repertoire going fast for fast, bit for bit with each other, about their love of the newspaper game and how much they like each other and this energy that they're exuding to specifically the other person. You have Rosalind Russell, who's hanging with the big dog. She is like the main dog of this place, and she's going tit for tat with all of them, and she can't escape it. She's a news hound. She is stuck here. She'll never leave this world, and she loves it. She's in her element when she is writing. She's in her element when she's with these people. She loves it, and she's the best at it, and she can never truly leave. And Bruce represents something that maybe she could have had if Walter wasn't in her life, but Walter is a person that she will always come back to, and she can never leave and never escape. And that in itself is something that's very interesting and very fun and worth talking about. And His Girl Friday, it's from a stage play where the other character is not a woman, but like a friend of a guy. It works better when you have two people who love to hate each other and hate to love each other and have a great connection through it. This is a perfect movie. It is the perfect script. If you want to know how to do a fast-paced joke where everyone's talking over each other, or how you get your wires crossed in conversation, this is how you do it. It is fantastic on every conceivable level, and one of my favorite films ever made. It is in the top 3 for me. What is my third movie? Well, we might have talked about it. We might not have. I guess you'll find out later. But thank you all for watching this episode of Comedic Tales. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.